you looking for a God-conscious husband? Or do you have a friend that is looking for a compatible spouse? Getting married is one of the most important decisions of your life. So before you embark on your marriage journey, you need answers so you have clarity and confidence to find a compatible husband. Smart Single Muslimah is a thought-provoking Muslim marriage guide for Muslim women. In the book, you'll discover how to find a husband, how to find out if you are compatible, what questions to ask a potential spouse, and how to deal with disappointment. Adopting a smart Islamic approach to relationships is about following some simple prophetic principles that will change your habits and attitudes about getting married. If you want honest pre-marriage advice that addresses contemporary issues you're facing, then you will find this book extremely useful. Available to buy on Amazon in Kindle or paperback format. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Smart Muslimah podcast. If you're new here, my name is Farhat Amin. I'm your host, and in today's episode, it's book recommendations that I will be giving, and in particular books relating to women. Over the past year, and to be honest actually, over the past few years, I've been reading a lot of books that look at the situation of women in society, particular in the West, and it's something I think as a woman, I'm interested in it, and in particular I wanted to understand how the way that life is for women now, and as far as whether it's the way that they are viewed by society, the roles, the expectations, and even solutions as well. I was interested in just understanding that what is going on as far as the position of women in the West. So I'm going to give you approximately maybe 5 or 6 books that I've read. Now, I also was reading I started reading more books about women in society, and this is by mainly non-Muslim women, and some are by Muslim women. Because once I decided I wanted to write a book which looked at love and relationships, the way women are expected to view that in particular, I then started to read even more books about that. And what was, alhamdulillah, I've learned so much. It's been really, at one point I was thinking of doing a degree in gender studies or women's studies, something related to that. And then I thought, hold on, that's going to be quite expensive, and I don't know. And when I looked at some courses at SOAS and a few other places, they were quite limiting, and I thought and not all the books I thought were relevant. So I thought, let me do some independent study myself, see if I can do this just by reading books. And then what's good is if you read a book, you can then go on YouTube and watch an interview with the writer, and you can go on Wikipedia and find about their history as well. So it was, alhamdulillah, it was really interesting doing this. And I thought I'd just share this with you because in my podcast I talk about women's issues, and so let me begin straight away. Okay, the first thing, before I start giving you the list, I would like to say that as women write books about the experience of women, the history of women, the expectations that put on women, and when writers, everyone does this, their writing is coloured by their values and principles, and we should never forget that. So therefore we will get in these books are people's opinions, and there'll be factual information, but there's also their analysis, but it's always coloured by their values and beliefs. And that's something, it's really, I've noticed this a lot. I don't know if you have, but when it comes to women writing about women's issues, sometimes we can forget that when this whole idea of you're finding your voice and sharing your experiences, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the truth. Yeah, this is one person's experience, a person who has biases, a person who, again, their experiences doesn't mean that's our experience. Yeah, we shouldn't, we as women, I know I do this all the time, is that we sympathize very quickly and we empathize very quickly to the point where we accept everything very too openly. and where I also think we are not critical enough, as in not in a negative just for the sake of being critical, but just being critical as in thinking and questioning their motives for the person writing this. You know, do they have an agenda? Are they proselytizing a particular view about women? And one of the things I have, you'll see this when I go through the list, the majority of the books about women, they are very, they push repeatedly certain ideas. So in particular, the idea of the importance of freedom and rights, as in, based on the very, rights-based culture of, a person, whether male or female, and so here it's talking about women, they should have the choice and the right to do whatever they want, as long as they're not harming anyone, and as long as it's done between consensual adults as well. Where in particular, because my focus, I began to home in on the idea of love and relationships. So in your personal life, in your public life, no one should tell a woman what she can do. She decides everything, as she has absolute agency, and there should exist this absolute equality where whatever men are doing, women should be able to be there and do that as well and be able to show up. So that's something that all of them were pushing. Therefore it's interesting, if as a woman, if you're reading, and a lot of these books were bestsellers, this is the message we will keep getting, and then it's easy to absorb and then start accepting that message. So it's really, I think it was a real eye-opener when I was reading this. Okay, so let's start off with the most recent book that I'm reading, and I'm actually reading this again. It's called All the Single Ladies by Rebecca Traister, and she's an American writer. And so this was really factual. I really liked this. It looked at the position, it's telling us how have women, the point where single women are at the moment, how have we got to this point? So what I really liked about that book is I learned a lot about the history. It particularly focuses on America. However, I could see lots of parallels with the experience of women in the UK, but it really gave me a good understanding of historically why singledom has become so popular. It described the experiences of, and the discrimination actually, that American women faced, and the labelling and the misogyny that existed, and to the point where you now have women really rebelling, is that a word that could be used, and against all the stereotypes, all the expectations in all aspects of their lives that are given to them. So to the point where the idea of a heterosexual relationship should not be the expectation. That's what she's saying. And I've nearly finished reading it, and it has she interviewed a lot of women when she was writing this book, and it was very interesting to hear about women from different races, different education levels. The other good thing I did like was she spoke about the experiences of women of colour and how historically in America they have been treated so badly. I learned things that, for example, as far as work, for so long a black woman was paid less than a white woman for doing the same work, and they were always given the worst jobs, mistreated the most. And so that was I'm nearly finished reading that. But again, you could read, she is a cheerleader for the idea that being single is the best thing ever. Although she does, what I do like about her, she did include women who chose not to be single and explained why, and also the problems. So for example, loneliness, financial difficulty, the idea that you don't have, if you are completely alone and you choose to be single, you do, when, for example, she gives an example of a woman who has an accident and then she had no one because her friends weren't there and she was living on her own in the city. She then did say how hard that person found it, going to the hospital or coming home and trying to take care of herself. So this was a balanced view. But I think what it really did make me feel, I did feel sympathy for the way that women in America have been treated. The history is not good. And even in particular, if you think of the conservatives, the way they blame, this is very interesting, the way they blame single women, it's similar to the way they blame immigrants for problems. So rather than looking at, okay, the way that their idea of marriage, their Christian views, their views of Christianity, they are misogynistic. They are 100% if you study it, and so therefore when there have been problems, she gave examples of politicians giving speeches where they specifically blame single women for problems. The fact that women aren't getting married, that's why America's doing so bad. That's why we have so much crime. Blaming in African American communities that if the women would just get married, then there would be less poverty, there would be less crime. Again, rather than thinking, look at what about addressing the racial structural issues in America. So that was, I think it was very well written. Okay, so now, and the next book is, again, it's interesting, a lot of these are written by Americans. So now there's one called Sex Object, a Memoir by Jessica Valenti. And this is her describing her experience growing up in America and how she has been viewed as a sex object from a young age, and how American society objectifies women. And then how there came a turning point in her life where she realized she could use her sexuality to get ahead and gain, whether it's through giving hugs to her college professors or whether she could become popular by doing, giving sexual favors to boyfriends, or just this idea. She realized that it's like she weaponized it and objectified herself. But then what she talks about as well is the toll it's had on her emotionally, and how when she then had a daughter, that's when she realized that how this is not good. So it's interesting, that was very interesting. I must admit, I wouldn't actually recommend this book because it was a very difficult read. It was quite harrowing listening to her life at college and sleeping and getting drunk. And then she gave lots of examples of her, the sexual abuse. And it was, but I kept on reading it because it was described as this, a very honest, and it's described as quite this shining light on the dark side of liberal progressive societies. And for example, she talked about how when she'd be on the train, how men would expose themselves. And again, after reading that, I'm not kidding, it's a bit like watching The Handmaid's Tale. You can end up hating men. I'm not kidding. You think all men are disgusting, all men are perverts, they just care about one thing. But again, you have to then think, okay, this is her experience. Although she talks about sexual harassment and harassment on the streets, how many women in America experience this, but they don't say anything, or when they have, nothing is done to help them. So what it really illustrated to me was that this idea, what has all this freedom, and for men and women, all this sexual freedom, all this idea of, wear whatever you want, do whatever you want, sleep with whoever you want, watch whatever you want as far as pornographic content. For a young, intelligent woman as she is, what kind of life did that give her? Yeah, it really was not a good poster for progressive liberal values. But what's interesting again is she was still, as far as solutions, there were very few, but just more the idea that if we just had more equality, or if men were more sympathetic. But I didn't see solutions in this book as far as questioning the core values that lead to this kind of treatment and this objectification of women, which you correctly labeled as, terrible. So it's interesting that there's bits when you read these books, you think, there's as a Muslim woman, you agree, you can see things and you agree, but the thing you then think is they don't have any solutions that align with our faith. But again, a hard read, but that it's something you may want to look at. Okay, the next one is Trick Mirror. Okay, this was by Gia Tolentino, and it was there was only a couple of chapters. The main reason I read this book was because of an article she wrote for New Yorker, which is called The Face of Instagram, and it talks about how, and I found that really intelligent and really spot on, because she, in that article, and then she talks about that more in the book, that how women are expected to, this book is more about the expectations put on women and in society, and she talks about social media, and so there's this idea that women are expected to look a particular way, and there's this particular face, this unrealistic face, very smooth skin, no pores, kind of basically kind of the Kardashian face, the Kylie Jenner face, that is given to us as the ideal, and like women are all trying to achieve this fake face. And it's interesting that she points out, and then she looked at her own life and a few other things, but there weren't that many good chapters, to be honest. But that one in particular was questioning all the pressures put on women to achieve a particular look, and how what's become accepted is that you can objectify yourself. No one else is allowed to objectify you, but you can. But she's questioning, is that right? Even though she admits that she objectifies, that she's part of the problem. She says she does it herself, but she can see the detrimental effects. So that was a good one, but not that many good chapters. Okay, let's move on. Now, Beauty Myth by Naomi Wolf. This is an old book, and this looks at the historical, again, the whole idea of this beauty myth, this similar to what Gia Tolentino was speaking about. But it talks about the history of plastic surgery, the history of the beauty, or how it's changed. There was a time when women could be more round and plump, and that was a sign of beauty. And then where we are now, where this very it's a very narrow vision of beauty, as we all know what it is. In our head straight away we can think of it. And so that was a good one. And again, she asked some really good questions about why it is we are in this situation, if we're supposed to, as women, like the same expectations aren't put on men as women. I remember reading that when I was 18, and I read it again, which again I thought was good is that it was asking questions, even the whole idea of how pornography affects our view of our body image. And of course she mentions anorexia and eating disorders, what effect that has on us. Right, let's move on. Return to Modesty by Wendy Shalit. I've mentioned this previously. Now, what's interesting is that her thing starts off about how she wasn't allowed to take part in sex education lessons when she was young, and how she's happy that her parents did that. And then her experience going to college, as far as what was expected of her, that i.e. to sleep around with guys, to have no hang-ups about hooking up. And what was really surprising about this book was how honest she was about the toll that this lifestyle has on women. And there's a very famous quote where she says that the virgins are expected to behave like prostitutes now. And that was quite an eye-opener. This is the first time I'd read a book where a non-Muslim woman is criticising this whole freedom-loving way of life that is foisted on and expected on women, and how she got a backlash and was described as if she was backward and sending women back to the Dark Ages because she was critiquing the lifestyle that was being foisted on women. Right, okay, so another nice book I did like was 21st Century Girls by Sue Palmer. Now, although this is written more as it's like if you're a parent and you're raising daughters, she talks a lot about the from young age to teenagedom to women, being a woman, being an adult, being a mother, that what are the values we are giving to our girls. She does intelligently critique feminism and how what problems that is causing, and how they do undervalue motherhood, and they kind of just tell you to, staying home, taking your kids, why would you want to do that? They kind of focus so much on workers' rights as a woman and encouraging women that just leaving your kids at home, and then just saying, well, if we're leaving our kids at home or with babysitters or daycare, and then nowadays giving them over to social media, and what is the long-term effect on young girls? Who is shaping their views of themselves? Where are they getting their information from when parents are not around, basically? So yeah, now then I think I'm nearly coming to now. Yes, this is it now. Untamed by Glennon Doyle. This is another bestseller, and it's the tagline: "Stop pleasing, start living." Now, this is okay. Firstly, I'd just like to say that this is sold like millions of copies. Now, the age range for this, as far as the standard of writing, I would say a 12-year-old could read this. It's the language is that basic, and I'm not being an English teacher here. I just thought, here's an adult woman writing in I did find it quite childish. It hasn't got proper chapters really. It's just like ideas and thoughts. But the basic message is that what women need to... women have been... Okay, I'm actually going to read out the blurb. Okay. Women... She talks about her personal experience. She has been buried beneath decades of numbing addiction and social conditioning. Glennon decided to let go of the world's expectations of her and reclaim her true, untamed self. So very quickly, she was married, she had kids, and then her husband cheated on her repeatedly. And so she divorced him, but then she started a relationship with a woman. So she then, had a lesbian relationship. And then, so this is all about how she transformed her life. And there is this idea that women are, we have been tamed. It's like she gives the analogy quite a lot of this caged animal. And when reading it, some parts I thought, okay, yeah, I agree. There is a certain amount of conditioning that happens. She was raised in a Christian background, and I think she still is Christian. And then she disagreed with the Christian perspective of women and original sin. And again, this is another, you see this reoccurring theme where women, they rebel and they disagree with the Christian expectations of women, Western conservative views of women. So the idea of the men go out to work, the women who would stay at work, only take care of the home, dedicate your life to your children, and then on top of that, in America in particular, there was so they had to, if we take it back a little bit, so no voting rights, no right to education, no right to work, no right to divorce, no right to inheritance. So women had to demand and struggle and fight for all of these rights. And then the rights of them being stretched so again, when you, as a Muslim woman, when we're reading a book like this, and it's, in a way, the solution is quite simple, that you live well, here's the solution, I'll say it to you. Make peace with our bodies, honour our anger and heartbreak, and unleash our truest, wildest instincts. That's the solution that she's chosen, and that's what she's advocating for women. And the book's been sold, like I said, millions of copies have been sold. But when I'm reading, again, can I as a Muslim woman think, okay, I need to unleash my wildest instincts? So what that means is, your whims and your desires, your nafs, you just do whatever you want. And that is what we're being given, and all women are being told. And it's something to ponder upon very carefully about. And now, so that's Untamed. I must admit, I would say this book is not worth reading, that you don't get much out of it all. That if you read, in a nutshell, that is what you would get, message you would get from it. And it's not rocket science. Even if, I'd say all the single ladies if I was, weighing them up, I'd say that's a better, you get much more from all the single ladies, as opposed to Glennon Dawson. She's a speaker, and Oprah Winfrey loves her, and Ellen loves her. It's interesting, all the same people are promoting the same message, pushing the same idea to women, selling their books, selling their courses. And so when I was reading all of this in conjunction, if I had not had access to the Quran, access to the tafsir, access to hadith, access to Islamic talks relating to women, society, our role, our responsibilities, our rights, it would be so easy to, without having the alternative, an Islamic voice there, it would be so easy to just lap all of this up, because all of these books, apart from Return to Modesty and 21st Century Girls, are really just telling me to live the life I want to, do what feels right, do what feels good, and all of them, as far as now, just coming back to the book that I've written, Smart Single Muslimah, it's one of the reasons I know I wrote this, was because I thought astaghfirullah, there are very good books, Islamic books about that. I'm sure they're in different languages as well that I don't have access to. But for a Muslim woman living in the West, if this is the only books we're getting, if you go into Amazon, you want to read a book about women, it's very likely you're going to read one of these, pick up one of these. Where's the connection to Islam? Where is the alternative to Islam being given? So you may be thinking, well, what did I not read any books by modern, like books about the challenges Muslim women face today? So I read Mona El Tahari's book, Hymens and Headscarves, and I've done, in a previous podcast episode, you can listen to it, I've done a very long book review of that. But surprise, surprise, she is just advocating exactly what these women, or all these other, she calls herself a radical feminist anyway. That is what she labels herself. And so what she was looking at was the Muslim world, and her main premise is that Muslim men are sexist and they hate women. That's it. That's the message she's giving. And it's, again, remember what I said about it's when you look at fact and opinion, and I think it's how do you know if someone giving me their opinion or is it fact? And how do I discern what is factually correct or incorrect? So just taking her book as an example, she gives statistics, she gives facts and surveys, and then she also gives her experience. And then she gives not lots, but some experience, all of them mainly, the bad experiences that women have in the Muslim world. And so based on that, you would form the opinion that, yeah, Muslim men they hate women, because the only thing she's given you are the bad experiences. She's given her bad experiences. She went on Hajj and she got felt up, and that of course it's disgusting that happened, but that's the only, so many women go on Hajj and they don't get felt up. But like I said, depends on how the facts are presented. And she, so her solution is that in the Muslim world, we need to have a sexual revolution, just like the West has had, and adopt feminism. That's how things are going to change. So that was one book. Now, another book, it's not about the burqa. Now, that book is an anthology of it's by different writers, and so they all come from different, they share different experiences. Some of them give more weight to Islam, the Islamic views, and some give zero. So Mona El-Tahawi is in that book again. And so it's interesting that now a lot of people, they like that book, and that's fine. But the main thing, the message that you get from that book is that your experience as a Muslim woman, whatever your experience is, you can talk about that, and that's absolutely fine. I understand that part. But everyone's giving their opinion on Islam and how to be a Muslim woman. But if you're not going to, this is the thing, let's take this up. Islam isn't, and being a Muslim isn't an identity. What do I mean by that? So, for example, being black, if you are black, that is you can then say, I can talk about the experience of being black. Yeah. So, for example, the racism you may face, because that is the color of your skin is part of you, and it cannot be taken away. You don't have to do anything to be black. If that explains that, it's just part of you. Whereas being a Muslim, to say I am a Muslim, you have to believe in Allah, and you have to believe in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, there's certain things that you have to do, and you have to believe in to be a Muslim. I hope this makes sense. So, for example, then the articles of faith, you have to believe in them, so that I'm a slave of Allah, I obey my Creator, I believe that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a messenger. He brought the Quran, that it was revealed to him, and the Quran is the word of Allah, and I will follow the Quran. Now, that's what makes you, that is the criteria to say, yeah, I am a Muslim. If you don't believe in the Shahada, if you don't believe in the articles of faith, you can't say you're a Muslim. Whereas you can just be born black, and that's it. There's nothing else you need to do to identify as black. Okay, now, given that now you believe in the Shahada, you believe in the articles of faith as a Muslim, now whether you follow them all the time or not, that is between you and Allah. So no one's passing judgment, but that is something. So whether you are now identify and say, yeah, I am a practicing Muslim, or I choose what parts I'm going to accept and I choose what parts I'm not. Again, that's your choice. And now, but then to start saying, I have a particular lifestyle. For example, I have a boyfriend. That's what, for example, one of the writers in the book, she lives with, it's I've genuinely forgotten her name. But that's just one example there, that you have a boyfriend. Now, you then can't say that is something accepted in Islam, because it isn't. We don't live in sin, basically, with a man we're not married to. Muslims do that, and you're choosing to do that, but you can't say that is an acceptable lifestyle choice. Yeah, it's similar to Mona El-Tahawi pushes the idea that being LGBTQ is acceptable, is okay. It's not. Yeah, in Islam, again, that's something forbidden. So can you see how having an opinion that I want to do this and I'm doing it is very different from factually what Islam says, what is allowed. And it's not, and these are things that not even, there's no difference of opinion. There is no, grey area. It's very clear cut. It's like, pork, alcohol, and these are things that you'll know when you gain knowledge and you learn things, yeah. But so the problem with it's not about the burqa is that it gives the examples of women's lives, different Muslim women, but it's not. There is no, for example, no principle to say yes in Islam. Okay, that person, that's her lifestyle choice. But in Islam, actually, that's not a permitted lifestyle choice. Or to be honest, in particular, with the extramarital relationships and LGBTQ, they're actually haram. At no point are you getting that as a Muslim woman. So if as a Muslim woman you didn't have that much knowledge, and some of us don't, it would be easy then to look at these chapters and think, yeah, actually, it's okay. You can do any of those things, because it's the lived experience of Muslim women. So can you see it's so I'll give you one other example. There's a chapter which the writer is advocating, makes this statement that Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, the Prophet ﷺ's wife, was a feminist. That's the whole argument of her chapter. So, and I've heard that a lot. I've watched YouTube videos about that, and so how do you decide, is that correct or not? Is that true? Is that based on the truth? So the way to look at that, again, it's a question of how do you, when you're reading these books, how do you know what to accept and what not, and what to reject as a Muslim? And even just factually, are these correct? So to decide if that statement is correct, number one, you would need to understand what is feminism, yeah? And there are plenty of books online that you can read to find out what feminism is. And so that is something you do. And in a nutshell, it's a movement, and it's not static, it's been continuous, that advocates for political, social, economic and personal equality for women, that women should have rights in all those spheres, yeah? So political, physical, sexual, economic, educational, yeah, societal, in the family life and outside the family, there should be equality. So the work for those rights. So then that's number one. You need to know that. Then you'd need to make the effort to study the life of Khadija. And even you could do go online and read about her life. Then you'd compare the two and see, is that what she was doing? Did she want, in her example in her life, did she have equality, and did she want equality in all aspects? And then you could say, yes, she was a feminist, or no, she wasn't a feminist. Yeah, I think that would be a very honest, objective way to decide that. Now, what is disingenuous and dishonest is to have an opinion that agrees with so you've decided in your mind, well, yeah, I'm a feminist, and then I'm going to look at Khadija's life and take the parts that agree with feminism, and then I'm going to call her a feminist. Now, that's, again, I'll be honest, it is completely dishonest to do that, and it's not very intelligent either, and it just doesn't make sense. And again, so therefore, that's one of that's why I do have a problem with it's not about the book. When I was looking for a book that looks at the challenges that Muslim women face, I thought they haven't, some of them have, but to be honest, I just thought I'm disappointed here, ladies. That's what I felt. And so, yeah, so it's interesting that's the last book that in my has really, when I've been, you could say all these books have helped me when writing my book and discussing ideas. A lot of the books that I read did look at that, and the thing that I then really wanted to do, which I found lacking in a lot of the books, was that I wanted to provide, well, of course the books for non-Muslims are not going to have that, but I wanted to give the Islamic solutions about the topic I write about. It was very specific about how we view, what is shaping our views on love, on relationships, singledom, marriage, because I think that's something I did not find. You could say it's like a social commentary on the situation that single Muslim women are at. But I thought I cannot do what these other books have done, where I'm not going to bring my biases and my experiences in a clouded way, and again, it can only be described as bias, that and not give the Islamic solutions, because what's the point in discussing a challenge if you're not going to show that actually Islam gives us guidance, Allah gives us guidance, our Creator's given us a solution to this problem. So inshallah, I'd love to know if there are any good books on women and society that you would like to recommend. Please send me an email, hello@Farhat, or on my Instagram, Farhat_UK. That's another way you can get in touch. And inshallah, if you do read any of the books again, I'd love to know what your opinion is of them as well. Okay then, take care. Assalamu alaikum.